Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel, where I think I've got a bit of a treat for all of us to follow on from what we were doing last night. Hello, Adam. Good to see you. How's everybody doing, chat? Um, uh, Keeping in the pattern of doing some double headers, where I'm reacting to assholes reacting to assholes. Caleb Maupin did a live stream reacting to the Republican debate. And that just seems like, I mean, that's... We just gotta. It is required. Hello, Ludlow. Also, just a little tip, for anyone who is watching this or the VOD who streams, I've been learning the ins and outs of this new camera that I got to replace the one, hello Raven G, to replace the one that I dropped on its head so many times. This is the Republican primary debate. So it's it's meta JabroniCon. You got a jabroni reacting to more fucking jabronis. And so one thing I've learned, if you get the Elgato face cam, which is what I ended up getting, is use the manual white balance and exposure controls. It's the only way to get everything to come out the way it ought to. That is just a piece of advice for anyone who ever picks up one of those cameras. And with that... Well, this...
Just watched the Republican debate, having just...
hang on. I've got... How do I turn it on? Okay. Hang on, I've got to turn this damn thing off. How do I turn Language Reactor off for YouTube, specifically? Settings. Enable. Sorry about this. This is a language learning tool that is really useful for Netflix and less so for YouTube. And I can't seem to... I guess I can just turn it off altogether. Wait, how do I just disable it? This is going to be annoying. Hello, Haku. Well, Trump is otherwise engaged. Sorry about this. Basic settings. Can I set it so it's not on YouTube is what I want to know. Let's see, okay. This is...
Just watched the Republican debate, having just reported on it for...
So the entertainment comes in, it's because it's this guy who pretends to be a communist
international television
reacting to the Republican debate.
Vision. And I'm sitting here and I am ready to talk to all of you tonight. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here. So glad that you're here. This is just a quick off-the-cuff.
Well, the thing about having Caleb and Vosh in the same room is that it's a paradoxical effect. When the one person who Caleb ends up looking good when he debates is Vosh. Vosh makes him look so fucking knowledgeable. I mean, the wild card would be the effect of Tim Pool being there.
Late night live stream. Just thought I would just hop on and
Yeah, just spontaneously. Put on his spontaneous little suit.
Back to what we just watched. I don't know how many of you actually just watched that debate.
I didn't.
It was something, wasn't it?
I'm sure it was a thing.
We all know the biggest thing is that the main candidate, who's leading in all the polls among Republicans.
Okay, let's just take a little poll in chat. How do you think that Caleb feels about Trump getting indicted? You think he's angry about that? Or do you think he feels differently about that? I kind of think he's pissed off.
Republicans wasn't even there. Donald Trump was.
This isn't just Caleb Muppet though. Hey Phoenix, this is Caleb Muppet reacting to the Republican debate.
Wasn't watching. Wasn't there. Donald Trump's interview that he did with Tucker Carlson. That interview actually went up to 80 million views.
I watched a little snippet of that on Polly People's channel. Yeah, I tend to think he's kind of mad about this.
While the debate was going on, meaning that
See, I feel like this is going to be very mask off.
Audience, people were paying attention to that. They weren't paying attention to the actual Republican debate, which is certainly saying something.
Well, because it's a shit show, and everybody knows because it's going to be a shit show. Like, the only people who are going to be convinced by anything that goes on at that fucking debate are the people who are already convinced because they like that it's a shit show.
But wow, I will say the whole time I was watching it, I just got a feeling that it was staged. I'm just being
okay, wow. He thinks that a U.S. political party debate was staged. Like, you mean the way that they're quite openly staged. They are totally scripted. This is why the League of Women Voters actually stopped it. I mean, maybe, I don't know how many people in chat are even old enough to remember back when the League of the Women Voters used to run these things. And there was a certain amount of neutrality in the way where they were organized, and they had some rules, and it looked like something that you could actually call a debate. And then I believe it was the first Clinton presidential debate, the Democrats and the Republicans both said, no, we want to script this thing. We don't want anything spontaneous to happen in it. But we want the League of Women Voters and their credibility to be associated with the process. And the League of Women Voters issued an extremely strong statement saying that they were not going to be participating in what they called a fraud. So yeah, I mean, he's about 30 years late, to the notion that these things are staged.
Honest with you all, I felt that fight between Chris Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy was staged.
I recently learned that Vivek Ramaswamy is from the same place I grew up. So,
I felt they both rehearsed their lines.
Wow, he thought that they rehearsed their lines at a television... Dude, just because you go on and just trust your luck in front of a live microphone doesn't mean people who do this for a living do that.
There were many, many moments in the debate I thought, that seems a little bit too perfect. This doesn't seem natural.
Of course it isn't natural. Of course it's fucking staged. I mean, is he the last person in the world to realize that... I mean, they don't hide the fact that it's scripted. The rules are all just a complete joke. Like, there is more spontaneity and a performance of Macbeth than there is at one of these political debates.
To me, this seems...
And that's not like a conspiracy theory. That's very openly how they organize these things.
It's like people have practiced their lines. I hate to be conspiratorial.
Okay. You could have asked me where this was going, and never in a million years would I would have thought that the first thing he does is to suggest that he hates to be conspiratorial, but he thinks that a bunch of professional politicians with professional speechwriters and image consultants and all this shit maybe actually rehearsed their lines in advance of going on television to try to get the presidential nomination.
Like that. But Vivek Ramaswamy, smooth, and it was clearly this whole debate was designed for him to get center stage. I mean, he was in the literal center of the stage.
Okay, is it just going to be him talking, or are we going to watch him reacting? Is he not react? He's talking in the past tense
The
here.
audience was on his side overwhelmingly. When he said things, they applauded for him. Vivek Ramaswamy seemed to have pulled his gesturing style from Barack Obama. That is very clear. Very clear. The way he was moving his hands
Well, thanks for defining what a gesturing style is.
He's practiced, he's gotten a lot of Obama training. That's pretty clear.
Obama training.
And Ramaswamy stole the show overwhelmingly. And he's doing the thing that Donald Trump did, which is that Donald Trump, he captured the energy of various dissident circles.
Ooh, that's a fun way to put it. We're gonna just call them dissident circles now. What he means Nazis. Okay, that's his dissident circles. Hang on a second. It is getting hot in here under all these lights. I forgot to turn my fan on, so we're just going to take just 1 second. I will be right back. Enjoy the picture of the seagull that I took at Cornwall. Various dissident circles. Motherfucker.
He's on there. They're calling him out because he says we don't need to support Israel. What's the point of that? He's saying we don't need weapons to Ukraine. He's saying a lot of anti-war sounding things. He's also demonizing China.
Yes, which is also what your dude, fucking Trump, also did. And at this point, he's been so fucking explicit about it. It isn't even an accusation to say that Trump is his dude. He just very clearly, that is who he likes. I've always thought seagulls were underused as sort of an anarchist symbol. You have the Sabo-Tabby and everything, but, seagulls don't take shit. They'll take your shit, though. Seagulls will just dive from 30 feet up and take your chips. And the seagulls in Cornwall are something else. And I got this picture of a seagull standing defiantly in front of a ragged Cornish flag waving in a cloudy sky. And it's like, I absolutely have to take this picture. And then I just sort of doctored the background away and... Wait a second. If you look at the bookshelves right behind him, the top one, not the one with Naomi Klein... Do you see the book to the left, on the far left of that shelf? Oh no, wait a second. That's not what I thought it was. I thought this was going to be about Strasser. It's actually about Ernst Thälmann. Okay, Hitler's rival.
Speaking against China. I would say Vivek Ramaswamy was the clear winner.
I wonder if he's ever going to pronounce the name right. It's Vivek.
Donald Trump, who didn't attend, but after Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy. Ron DeSantis bombed epically, right? That guy was supposed to be this big Republican. He looked tired. He looked uninteresting.
Well, yeah, because he had a long day of just making life impossible for trans people and banning school.
He looked boring when he started speaking. You almost went to sleep. Ron DeSantis, I think this is...
Wait, the Mormons have appropriated the seagull as a symbol? This is the first time hearing of it.
Ron DeSantis... Not liking it. Now,
when Caleb Maupin calls you low energy, that's saying something.
Nikki Haley was obnoxious.
Well, of course, Of course she's obnoxious. It's the Republican primary. The whole point is to see who could be the most fucking obnoxious and horrible and say the things that we're supposed to pretend to be angry about to fucking, own the libs. And once again, I think I'm probably 20 years older than everyone in chat.
Very obnoxious, but they were really giving her a prominent position. She's been vetted by all the right circles. And I believe that she and Mike Pence were both kind of holding down the fort for neoconservatism. They were both kind of on the stage as the representatives of the foreign policy establishment and of Israel.
Oh, of course we're gonna go like this. This bullshit. See, what he's doing here is the idea is that supposedly Israel is not a tool of U.S. imperialism. The U.S. is a tool of Israel. That's what he's doing here. He wrote an entire fucking book on it. And that's just bullshit, because Israel is totally dependent on the U.S., and on the very rare occasions when Israel has tried to go off and do something that was not going to be in the best interest of the U.S., it took literally a phone call to shut them up.
And they were both on the stage making it clear why, that...
Wait, so Mormons are sort of reverse Seagull Maoists? Oh, 36, okay. Then we're in sort of... Okay, then we're in a similar... we're in a similar bracket then. Komodo dragon is a great communist animal there. Because, fun fact, if you read the Vault 7 documents that got leaked from the CIA back about 5 or 6 years ago, they have these conversations between the CIA's malware devs in there. And one of the recurring themes is that the CIA's malware devs fucking hate Komodo antivirus. They did. I mean, you have like page after page of "we can't get through the sandbox" and referring to anyone who uses Komodo antivirus as paranoid bastards. And ever since then, I'm on Team Komodo. If the CIA can't figure out a way through it, then
that is still a big
that's something to recommend.
In the Republican Party, even though the neoconservative experiment ultimately failed. I mean, in the Bush years, that was the end of neoconservatism.
Well, it didn't really have anywhere to go after just basically setting the entire Middle East on fire.
Worldview and the economic interests there and the foreign policy circle.
Yeah, wait, is he saying that the fucking that the oil and arms industries are yesterday's people now?
The old Sovietologists, the Leo Strauss, Irving Kristol crowd, they still have a lot of
happy
influence
almost
in the
birthday.
Republican Party, even if they're not...
Yeah, 44 here. Like, I remember the Clinton debate because actually, like, the first sort of kind of political-ish activity I ever did was a friend of mine and I went to a Bill Clinton rally in his first campaign. I do beg chat's forgiveness. I was 12 at the time, and I wrote insulting placards about Bush, the original fucking Bush too, not this fucking newfangled George W.
Even if you're
the original
Bush, think
Bush.
that way anymore. Even if the public relations messaging, Mike Pence and Nikki Haley, they still represent a big section of the American deep state, right? A big section of the U.S. intelligence apparatus, a big section of the FBI.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is such materialist analysis. Why don't we talk about, like, the capitalist class a little bit, since you like to pretend and cosplay as a communist? Like, could it possibly be that actually a big part of why the U.S. takes an interest in an area is that it is of commercial interest to specific sectors of the capitalist class here, and not just some shit about the deep state, a term that, I mean, I will be absolutely amazed if he's read any of the fucking Turkish theorists who came up with that term for a very particular analytical purpose, to talk about the aspects of the state that are basically, that never are up for election, that are just, part of the bureaucracy that is always there and has an enormous amount of power as a result of that. And then it just got sort of appropriated by white supremacists.
a big section of the military brass still think in that neocon way.
I wonder if there's a reason for that. I mean, maybe we could do some materialism. Maybe you could show us some A plus B plus C equals D, and then correct it because you realize that you haven't accounted for profit. Like a little bit of materialism as a treat.
Even though, we saw kind of a resurgence of that Jimmy Carter.
By the way, sound check. How's the audio on all this? Is everybody hearing everything okay?
Jimmy Carter, soft power faction, even though there was kind of a surge in the synthetic left and the liberal CIA.
The synthetic left.
Under the Obama administration and continuing into the Trump.
Okay, this is a new usage of the term synthetic left, which as far as I know, he made up in the first place. Like, what the hell? What synthetic left is he talking about? I mean, like, is he talking about Occupy now? Because, I mean... Or is he talking, like, what the hell is the synthetic left in the Obama administration?
Trump administration, and that they seem to have the upper hand in a lot of ways. The neocons still...
Well, except that, the deep state, in the version that is now used to describe, like, anything that annoys white nationalists, by definition, is always run by anything conservatives don't like. But this is not, I really must stress, the origin of the concept. The term is something that came from, like, Turkish communists. It could not be farther removed from what it has come to mean.
Exist, and the fringe right is not completely where, that even though the majority of Republicans now think like fringe rightists.
Think like pharyngitis?
Right? They don't...
Wait a second. I mean... If the Republicans think like fringe rightists, an example of which, I mean, would have to be Trump, surely, and you are constantly standing Trump, what does that make you? What does that mean you think like, Caleb? Can we do some A plus B plus C equals D on that?
Don't control the Republican Party's apparatus, and they don't control the money, they don't control the, Fox News. I don't know if you saw, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, during the debate, she tweeted out that Nikki Haley is the most dangerous candidate of all of them on the stage. She would start World War III.
They would all start World War III under the right circumstances, and all the fucking Democrats would too. Because this is, again, the interests of the capitalist class. But of course, the thing is that... oh, God. Yeah, ever since 2016, that's what's happened. Yeah, MTG would totally start it. She certainly, let's remember, his boy, Trump, his homie, wanted to invade Venezuela. Wanted to invade fucking Venezuela. And lest we forget, like a lot of liberals give Mike Pence, the guy who practically single-handedly started an AIDS epidemic back in Indiana. They like to give him credit because he didn't want to undermine democracy. This is the motherfucker who, like, anointed Juan Guaido president of Venezuela. Like, all these motherfuckers would start World War III under the right conditions. Hey, Erica, good to see you.
And then she talked about how Marjorie Taylor Greene and other MAGA people, other Trump supporters, were locked out of the spin room. They were not allowed. They're not allowed to be part of the post-debate discussion. I don't know.
Well, probably because they're just fucking incoherent.
You saw that. Fox News locked out Marjorie Taylor Greene and all Trump supporters. They were all escorted out of...
I don't know whether there's anything true about any of this that he's just saying now. Yeah, actually Trump said some stuff about invading Mexico as well at one point. Because the idea is that if the U.S. were to start a war against Mexico, somehow that would mean less refugees coming from Central America, is the idea. Like, because if you want to have fewer refugees coming from an area, the real key, what you want to do is start a war there, because then nobody runs away.
The Fox News area, they will not be allowed on the air. to give commentary after the debate. That's
no, that's
big.
a fucking loss.
That's very, very big. Very, very big. And, you know, I don't know. I put what I saw on the stage coming out of the mouth of Vivek Ramaswamy, I put that in the context. I put that in the...
We actually, incidentally, Vivek Ramaswamy, he was a guy who was not on my radar at all. But if you remember, when we were looking at PragerU's infomercial about, like, all the new brands of, like, just grifty bullshit, like, there's, like, the razors for racists, and basketball theme clothing if you want to tell people you don't like Black Lives Matter, and all this bullshit is called Unwoke Inc. And the guy who was interviewed as the guy who wrote the book on what woke is Vivek Ramaswamy, who I lamentably discovered is from the same city that I grew up in.
The context of what I heard, weird things happening. I'm doing this on my phone, so I haven't done it on my phone this way for a while.
Yeah, it really is kind of nostalgic. I mean, he's got his assistant principal suit on.
I put what I saw tonight in the context of the RFK campaign, in the context of the Cornel West campaign, and it seems like the establishment has kind of decided that the mistake that they made in 2016 was they allowed Donald Trump to be the lightning rod that absorbed all anti-establishment energy.
Well, no, that is not why he won in 2016. I'm responding to the subtitles here. But the thing is, he would not have won, except that the alternative was somebody who nobody was interested in. Abstention is what won. There was, anti-establishment and energy. The guy's a fucking, like, billionaire. But yeah, what is true in all of this is that there is definitely a ruling class preference for the boring reactionary asshole. For fuckers like Biden and, and your fairly bog standard, repressive liberals like Gabriel Boric, and just anything that is not particularly exciting, because the real mistake, it wasn't that he was a lightning rod for anti-establishment energy, because he really wasn't. It was that he freaked a lot of people out. Liberals really were not ready for that. Yeah, and the result of that was a whole lot, actually, of mobilization and stuff like that. And that is the exact opposite of what the ruling class wants from any candidate. They don't want mobilization. They're trying to keep people calm and shut them the fuck up, and so that they will just sort of let the ruling class do whatever the hell they want. And that was exactly not what happened with Trump, because Trump freaked so many people out so completely.
And that's why Donald Trump won in 2016, is that he became anybody who was against the status.
Holy shit, I think I've broken a record here. I've got 10 viewers all at once. I don't think I've ever had that happen on this channel. Neat. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that Hillary Clinton, by the normal standards of normal countries, won by 3 million votes. That's what everybody forgets. But if you actually look, if you break it down by regions, and you include abstention, then it was abstention. None of the above actually swept that fucker. None of the above is what won. Especially if you look at any place they call it Trump counties or something like that, and we're supposed to be, to feel that it serves them right, that they're all broke and everything like that. If you look there, none of the above is what won. It wasn't that people, overwhelmingly voted Trump for the most part. It is that most people, being broke, saw that they had absolutely no horse in the race, and so they did not take the day off work, if they even had work, to go and vote for somebody who they knew hated them, and was quite open about it, and said things like that people wanting access to healthcare is like a kid who wants a pony.
Status quo for any reason. Anti-war, 9/11 truth, libertarian, didn't like political correctness, whatever.
Political correctness. Wow, that is a nostalgic piece of right-wing bullshit.
Everybody who didn't want the status quo voted for Donald Trump.
No, they didn't. No, they fucking didn't. This is, I mean, it's amazing how many different groups of people with opposing interests continue to stoke that particular lie. I mean, this is now 7 years after we've had the definitive debunking. I mean, if you look at the people who voted for Trump, they tended not to be the people who were the economic losers in the country. They tended to be better off than the people who voted for Clinton, and both of them tended to be better off than the people who didn't vote at all. I mean, this whole thing, the idea that these are all anti-establishment types, I mean, what he means is they're Nazis. I mean, what he means is they're fucking white nationalists, and that does not make them anti-establishment, Caleb. That means that they are in the most venerable tradition of the fucking establishment in this country.
Hillary Clinton was the status quo. She was like the walking incarnation.
As opposed to a literal billionaire.
Of the obnoxious status quo. She didn't even bother to campaign because she just assumed she would win because it was so rigged in her favor.
That's a funny thing to say since actually, I mean, she won by 3 million votes, and the only reason she didn't get it is because the Electoral College exists to give fucking participation trophies to politicians nobody wanted.
And Donald Trump, he just, he started it. You'll remember in 2016 during that election.
It'll be interesting to know if what he's about to say is something that actually is consistent with anything I remember about that election.
And I remember it because that was my first year at RT, and I covered it excessively. Donald Trump started talking like everybody, right? I mean, he was
like what everybody.
He sounded at one point he was saying he was going to restore Glass-Steagall, he was going to cancel student debt. At another point, he was talking out of 12 sides of his mouth.
Well, yeah, which is not talking like anybody. That's just doing the standard grift for somebody who is very much part of the establishment, but wants to get at least a few, like, gullible dickheads who fucking who are dissatisfied with the status quo. And, I mean, think about how long. First of all, I mean, there are a couple of things that I definitely remember him saying on yeah, he did none of that, and he didn't even talk about most of that. I mean, the one thing that I can think of that he actually said during that period that was, in fact, remarkable was he actually said the invasion of Iraq was based on a lie and not, a mistake, which is like the standard line, and it was like, that was interesting. But, I mean, none of that was anything. And it was just gone. And what remained, what was consistent everywhere he went was the fucking racism.
And it was just kind of like, I don't like the establishment. I'm making politics sexy again.
I don't use the word sexy and Donald Trump in the same fucking sentence. That is like mental saltpeter.
I got big flames coming out of the ground at my rallies, and CNN and the news hate me, and
I have like fucking fascist goons who beat the shit out of protesters, and I say I'll pay their legal fees. Yeah, it was really special. I mean, I wonder if there's anyone else, any other politician you can think of, whose rallies were combined with torchlight, yelling, inciting violence against people, and those people then immediately getting the shit kicked out of them. I wonder, Caleb, you got all these books, maybe you read one of them. Can you think of somebody else that description would fairly well apply to?
It worked. So I feel like right now, right? They want anti-establishment voices to run in many different directions, right? So you got Vivek Ramaswamy.
Where's the hell's the fucking investor? Like, what is anti-establishment about him?
You got RFK. You got Cornel West. You got.
And I mean, like, What the hell does anti-establishment even mean at this point, that it applies to all these
Marianne
people?
Williamson, kind of, and they're trying, you know, the only way, and they've even got the No Labels campaign. Did you?
Yeah, which is just neoliberalism. It's not the first time there's been a no labels campaign, and at that time it was just bog standard neoliberal bullshit too.
Hear about this? There's going to be the No Labels. No Labels.
I mean, during the Obama era, there was something by that name.
Did you hear about this? You know, that Joe Manchin might be running for president as the No Labels candidate, and they...
No way. Why? I mean, surely the label is like every single coal company.
They want this election to be a circus, because that is the only way that Kamala Harris can ever become president of the United States. Joe...
What? Okay. I've heard Tim Pool say things like this.
Biden is old and fragile. And Kamala Harris, they have programmed her psychologically.
Why can't she just be a horrible establishment ghoul? Why do they have to program her psychologically? This is the motherfucker who basically says, like, that there's no such thing as brainwashing, there's no such thing as cults, especially not the one that I run. And now they have programmed her psychologically? Like, couldn't she just be somebody who is acting in according to her class interest? Do we hear Bueller? You heard about fucking materialism ever?
They have manipulated her. They know exactly how to push their buttons. They want...
God, I would love it if Manchin in cinema ran as a presidential ticket, because I've never actually seen candidates with a name recognition get no votes.
Kamala Harris. She is the Hillary Clinton State Department. She is the candidate of Silicon Valley fascism.
Well, what, and you think that a fucking, like, blue chip investor motherfucker like Ramaswamy isn't Silicon Valley fascism? Like, I mean, Ron DeSantis launched his campaign in the most spectacularly disastrous way possible on Elon Musk's platform, which I will always call Twitter, motherfucker. I do not give a shit what Elon Musk wants it to be called. He didn't build a damn thing to do with it. Like, I have a feeling that Silicon Valley fascism is kind of okay with a lot of the options. They're very happy with Trump.
That if it gets down to a two-person race,
which it literally will get down to. That's not an if. That's how the whole fucking U.S. election system works. First, he's like, "Wow, I don't want to be conspiratorial or anything," but I think that they rehearsed their lines for this debate, and now it's like, if this presidential campaign goes down to a two-person race, like, can you name a race that wasn't, for all intents and purposes, a two-person race in your lifetime? And I don't need to hear about Nader and all this shit, because for all intents and purposes they're not candidates, because there's a de facto ban on opposition parties. They basically are unable to function in this electoral system by design. So it's always a fucking two-person race.
Between
what are you talking
somebody
about?
Who's not Joe Biden and not Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, that other person will win. So they want to turn this election into a circus. I am convinced they want to turn this election into a circus.
Who's they? You keep talking about they. First they're fucking psychologically programming Kamala Harris, and now they want to turn the election to... Who's they? Like, can you name them?
Circus. Into an absolute circus in order to secure the coronation of Kamala Harris. That is how it looks to me, because...
like, Cornel West is totally irrelevant. Cornel West is totally irrelevant because the Green Party is never going to come up with the kind of money that will ever make them a contender. They're not going to be allowed in the debates. We've already seen that. I mean, In fact, they probably would not even allow Cornel West to watch the debates as a spectator with a ticket. I mean, if you were old enough to remember the 2000 election, you may remember how Ralph Nader, having been completely shut out of all of the presidential debates that year, he bought a ticket. He was going to just be in the audience, and security kicked him out.
You know, one thing I will say is that Vivek
Yes.
Ramaswamy, he said a lot of things on stage.
Wow. That's so unusual for a debate.
But then he framed them all as if he did not mean them.
That doesn't surprise me. He's said he's taken two exactly opposite positions on climate change. I mean,
and that is very strange, right? I mean,
yeah, whoever heard of a politician talking out both sides of their mouth?
He said he didn't want to send weapons to Ukraine and that it wasn't in America's interest.
Wait, is his middle initial really T? How the hell did I not notice this? His initials work out to Conche tu madre. Perfecto, weón. Este weón se llama CTM. Se llama Conche tu madre, weón. I love it.
Great. He said we should, but we should really focus on...
For those of you who do not know Chilean, CTM, CTM, that means fuck you.
Fighting China. At one point, Mike Pence called Vladimir Putin a communist.
Well, I mean, wouldn't it be funny if a certain Nazbol ghoul that we're all familiar with and likes to dress like junior high vice principal did a whole video about how Vladimir Putin is an ally to the communist movement?
He's a communist. Mike Pence thinks...
Like, you, motherfucker, he actually has a video with the title, Putin is an ally to the world communist movement.
He's in a cowboy movie, right?
Wait, what cowboy movie had communists in it? That sounds based. Especially if the communists win. And if there isn't a movie with communists and cowboys in it, could we have, like, a communist cowboy movie?
Mike Pence.
That would rock. I mean, like, maybe around the farm workers, the sharecroppers unions. I mean, that's a place where you could have some communist cowboys. I would watch that shit. Like, get Greta Gerwig to do the production design on it too.
I'm a cowboy. This town ain't big enough for both of us. Go ahead, make my day.
That's two completely different movies, only one of which was a cowboy movie.
I'm Mike Pence. Mike Pence. I mean, the guy's like he walked out of a fucking cowboy movie, right? Mike Pence. He was a radio host.
One of my favorite anecdotes about Mike Pence is the time. This is before he became VP. He was governor of Indiana, and I remember I regularly, sort of a birthday tradition that I have with my mother, is we go to Indianapolis. There's this great little pizza place that an ex of mine told me about years and years ago, and it's really good, and it's just a neat little road trip to go on. And so we're driving through Indianapolis, and there are lawn signs all over the place saying "Resign Pence."
In Indiana. That's what he was. That's his background.
Yeah, exactly. It's a cult movie.
He's a radio host from Indiana. And
yeah, and fucking Donald Trump's a reality TV presenter and grifter.
As a radio host in Indiana, he had this radio program.
Wow, he's a radio host. And he had a radio program. Was it on the radio? Was this radio host's radio program, was that on the radio?
This religious, evangelical Christian guy who had a radio program who bashing Obama that was very popular. I just don't like Barack Obama, and I'm a Christian conservative. I don't much...
Okay, now he's doing Reagan.
Like Barack Obama, not a good guy. I'm a big, strong man, so I don't much care for Barack Obama. I mean, that's Mike Pence, right? I mean, he's trying to sound like, like I'm some kind of scary cowboy movie
No, I mean, if it sounds anything like that, it just sounds like Ronald Reagan talking normally.
or something. Like some kind of like, it's like Clint Eastwood who lives across the street from his neighbors and is like, the neighbors are walking by. Hey, neighbor, you ever want to come see my new firearm? I can show it to you.
Oh, okay, so he's just run out of material now, and so he's doing impressions. I remember one time, one of his videos, the Surfs did a react to it. This is a couple of years ago. Where he starts out and he just goes on, if he wanted to be popular, he'd do pornography and impressions all the time. And it's like, yeah, I don't think that was the key to popularity for you, dude.
Huge gun. Did I ever tell you about Nam, kid? I fought in Nam. Killed me lots of communists in Nam.
Yesterday, I mean, one of the really interesting things. I don't know if you watched the VOD, Erica, but he was talking about how. Do you think these communist countries, they like the trans stuff? And he rattles off a whole list of countries that have a significantly better trans rights record currently than the U.S. But apparently, this guy, fucking fake. I mean, he doesn't. Even for a fake communist, he is not very careful to actually keep up on things like LGBT rights in Cuba, which honestly are at a point where, given what's going on Florida, I think we might actually see people voting in the other direction. Like, healthcare and fucking LGBT rights, and there's very little COVID. I mean, it's and they're fucking, the Soberana vaccine performs better against Omicron than the stuff that we've got here so far. I mean, it's fucking tempting to me. He does not. I mean, he's just a fascinating little guy.
I'm Mike Pence. I mean, it's like some kind of like scary old man or something. Some kind of like scary old cowboy man. That's what Mike Pence.
Scary old cowboy man. Hey, well, this wordsmith right here. The scary old cowboy man. Okay. Shall we continue with this one, or what do you think, chat? Or would you like to see something else? Because this is 2 hours long. There's no way we're getting through the whole thing one way or another. Is this one you'd like to continue with, or would you like to stick a pin in it and maybe we can look at something else? An expert summary. Oh wait, there's a summary of a movie called Cowboys and Communists. Yeah, let's hear the excerpt, Raven. I want to hear this. Okay, something else. There's plenty. We got a bunch of stuff here, so why don't we... Let's see what we've got here. God, there are geological layers in my reaction fodder. Playlist. Oh yeah, some of them are even older. Oh, okay, here's something. Don't cancel Anna Kasparian with struggle session with Ben Burgess. How's that sound? God, now he's got me doing that fucking Clint Eastwood Ronald Reagan thing. Ben Burgess is started out as a lib, and he has consistently moved to the right. Like, I mean, and his whole thing with Anna Transphobian is that she hasn't just because she's saying all this white nationalist and transphobic stuff. That doesn't mean she's moving to the right, because all she's doing is saying things he's long believed. Have Canadians lost their freedom? Biden's sinister plan to trick young people into voting for him. Okay, Andy Ngo loses case against Antifa. Defense lawyer threatens jury with Tim Pool. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but his point is that her actual views aren't right wing because he shares them. Like, I mean, he wrote a whole book about how cancel culture is actually a thing, which is an important way that a lot of people will signal their moves to the right in advance of doing them. I mean, his big thing is like having discussions, is having theoretical debates about things that affect marginalized people, but the idea is you're not supposed to think about how it will affect them or let that affect your judgment about what to do.
All right, let's jump into this first story. We got this from the Post Millennial. Breaking: Portland jury finds Antifa militants not liable.
Now, the Post Millennial, for people who don't know, is Andy Ngo's rag. It is just fast shit.
In Andy Ngo attack, defense attorney declares, "I am Antifa." The defendant's attorney told the jurors their faces will be remembered.
Okay. Now, remember, this is the Post Millennial, which means all of that shit can be made up. Oh, Jimmy Dore, I mean, he has this JFK thing because he has lots of reactionary conspiracy theories. See, we did a thing, I don't know if you were there for it, where I looked at Jimmy Dore was looking the most amazing JFK speech on peace, and it was just total platitudes. And then he explains that if you start telling the truth, they kill you. They, again, no definition of who they is. Which, I mean, which is why Jimmy Dore doesn't do that. That's why he's so safe. He avoids doing that.
I want to show you this tweet. So this is the Post Millennial says Andy Ngo was hurt.
Oh, wow. So now, look, he's got two different sources. The Post Millennial and a tweet from the Post Millennial. See, this is great.
Harassed this morning on his way into court by alleged members of Antifa. The jury told the judge that...
Well, you mean sort of like Andy Ngo notoriously does to people, which is why people actually try to keep him away from them? Like the time he fucking upskirted Sophie from Mars in London?
They are concerned about being doxxed and said that people are trying to find out who they are. This is the current state of American politics in these cities. You have a defense attorney who tells the jurors, here you go. Burroughs told the jurors that she will remember each one of their faces.
Okay, little bit. Let's just see what I actually find this claim about. Okay. Okay, the first thing that comes up from this when I look up the Burrow, okay, no case Burrow remember faces is this bullshit from the post millennial. Yeah, I mean, like literally every source I'm finding that says that she actually said something about remembering people's faces is a fash source. It's the post millennial, the gateway pundit. It's all the fash. Law enforcement today. Yeah, he upskirted her. He was doing propaganda for the so-called LGB Alliance, which is basically a bunch of rich straight people who have connections to the media and the Tory party. Yeah,
Burroughs not take the time to provide evidence as to why the two defendants should
it's either Gol or a guy working for Gol, but Gol shared it, certainly.
be free from charges, but rather use the time to defend anti-fascism and attack No's credibility as a journalist.
What credibility as a journalist? There's no attack surface there. I mean, Andy Gol, yeah, has amazing fucking defensive positioning there. Because there's literally no way to attack something that doesn't exist. He's just a guy who makes shit up and provides and doxes people so Nazis can attack them.
So the trial, for those that are not familiar, is these alleged Antifa members who had assisted in the brutal attack outside of a hotel.
Yeah, and the point was that it wasn't a brutal attack and it wasn't an attack, and that didn't stop Endigo from raising huge amounts of money claiming to have been seriously injured.
Had provided support to other individuals who are accused of violently attacking him, and one of the individuals admitted to actually physically attacking Andy Ngo on one occasion. The jury reached a verdict in the case of Andy Ngo versus Rose City Antifa, in which they found both defendants, John Colin Hacker and Elizabeth Renee Richter, not liable in the civil case brought against them. Now, I will say, I don't know the full details of...
I'm shocked. He doesn't know the full details.
How everything was laid out, but I will call out absolutely when you have a defense attorney telling the jurors who are terrified of Antifa that...
Well, first of all, see, he just throws that in there. The jurors are terrified of Antifa. First of all, there's this thing called jury selection, and I have a feeling that one of the things that will have happened very quickly is that anyone who had any strong feelings at all about organized anti-fascist work was probably excluded from the jury pool. And the other thing is, what's interesting about public attitudes towards, like, militant physical resistance against fascists is they vary very strongly depending on whether a place has seen fascist mobilizations or not. So in a place like Portland, which has seen massive and murderous fascist mobilizations on repeated occasions, you would actually expect a potential venire, a potential jury pool, to be more favorably disposed towards militant anti-fascists than a lot of other places.
They're going to remember their faces?
Is that during the trial?
Yeah, I was going to say, he's pronouncing it much better than... He's pronouncing it much better than these people usually do. Yeah, I mean, I call them that. Terrified of Antifa. Like, he doesn't offer any citation for that. Because I have a feeling that the defense counsel will have, like, peremptory the shit out of anyone who reads, like, the post-millennial or any bullshit like this.
Yes.
That's gotta be juror intimidation. I thought...
Yeah, which is why it's kind of interesting that there's no evidence that it happened. Now, what's interesting here is, of course, there are transcripts, verbatim transcripts of everything that happens in court, and yet the only people who seem to claim to have heard this statement, the only people who claim to have heard are all, like, fash sources. Naja, also ich reagiere ja auch gelegentlich mal auf den. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, literally, that's the thing about fash in the US. if you look at the pictures, if you're like somebody who is enough of like a fucking a fash OSINT nerd to be paying attention every time they mobilize, you see the same fash faces all over the country. But it's different people facing off against them. It isn't like they're flying motherfuckers across the country from one end of the place to another to make up the numbers. But it's local communities who show up to tell them to piss off.
But Antifa was an idea. But it turns out this idea has attorneys.
Who the hell is this guy? Wow. So it turns out that people who are being sued for things get lawyers, and this is confusing to this guy.
Well, that's the argument they made. They made that we're not part of an organization. We are just anti-fascists.
You know, we had sued, we had tried to get documents about an Antifa member who was...
Okay, does anyone know who this guy is? I've never seen him before. Although now he's sitting here talking about trying to dox anti-fascists.
I guess had beaten up someone. And she was a teacher. So we wanted documents about what was going on at the school. And Antifa intervened. They had lawyers.
Well, I mean, and he's shocked that people get lawyers when people are trying to dox them.
Spent a lot of time fighting, and she got sanctioned for doing this. And not only is it obviously an organization.
Based on what? I mean, the fact that when people come after individuals, they retain, in a legal capacity, they retain counsel? Is that what you're basing that on? Well, I mean, one thing to note about, like, the OG Antifa is, I mean, there's actually a big remove, because you'll notice this is actually with a shift in the symbols as well. Because the original Antifa flag, which was, for the KPD, as you note, it was 2 red flags. Now it's a red flag and a black flag. Like, most of the Antifa organizing that goes on these days has a lot more to do, I mean, their ideological legacy that they're following has a lot more to do with, 2 groups of people. One is the Autonome in Germany, like anarchist communities known for facing off against cops and fascists all the time, and the other would be the AFA, the AFA in Britain, which was like anarchists and a lot of communists. But essentially people who did not go along with the SWP's line of coexist and compete. No, the original, you're thinking of the Iron Front, which was the Social Democratic Party's paramilitary group. Raven, the Eiserne Front with the 3 arrows. There's a reason I don't use that, because the Eiserne Front basically was more interested in, and a lot of people who use them actually distance themselves from that history, but I mean, to me, it's a good enough reason just not to fucking use it. Yeah, the third arrow was for, communism. I mean, more than anything, this motherfucker's tied up energy that should have been used for militant community defense against fascism, because they would just sort of join in and beat the fuck out of communists. And very much they paved the way for fascists to take over by creating that sort of division. And it's why it's actually kind of hard to not to see the Stalinists of the time's point in calling the Social Democrats of the time social fascists. Weg mit dem Schwindel der Eisernen Front, den Betrügern am Proletariat. That's Ernst Busch, Kampflied gegen den Faschismus.
But on top of this defense lawyer doing something which is exceedingly improper, I don't understand how could have gotten a fair trial here. Remember, they had to clear the courtroom. The court stopped letting the public in because Antifa was showing up and engaging in violent outbursts.
Well, first of all, Let's remember, this is just a bunch of people who make shit up for a living, and you can basically get away with saying anything on the Tim Pool cast. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, when somebody who notoriously hands over the names of anti-fascists to armed fascist paramilitaries is using the judicial process to do just that, are you really surprised that people who are defending their communities against guys like him might show up?
So, what would you do if you were a juror? You'd probably think, I got a wife and family, I got kids at home or whatever. I'm getting out of here, and finding them, not guilty or not liable is an easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so interesting how I just did a search for this, a very neutral search to see what would come up about this. I recognize your faces or whatever, and it's literally just far right sources that even use the phrase.
Way out.
What do you do in the case where it does appear that there's intentional juror intimidation? What do you do if a judge isn't doing their job and intervening to defend?
First of all, the thing is, what you do is it's called an appeal, but the thing is, the judge. This happened right in front of the judge. And the judge didn't do anything. And this is a judge who actually, apparently, by their own account, cleared the courtroom so that anti-fascist community defenders could not show that they were present. This is not somebody who was necessarily on side with the defense case. This is somebody who probably, see, the reason that nothing happened after the thing that a bunch of fascist media outlets claim happened, yeah, the reason for that is it probably didn't actually happen, is the thing.
And them, what happens in that case?
I'm no lawyer, but
okay, I had assumed, my guess who the hell he was like the lawyer for Endingo in this case or something like that, because I've never seen this guy before. And he doesn't have one of these really poorly placed nameplates like everybody else gets that are somehow set up so they're directly behind their head so you can never see the whole thing.
my guess is there could be something you could appeal here. That there was...
Well, I mean, if any of this is true, that is literally the remedy. You would actually you would file an appeal and you would say the jury was tampered with, or you could file for a mistrial and say there was jury tampering and therefore this jury needs to be dismissed and we need to start this case all over again. I mean, there are a number of ways that this could be dealt with, and Endingo had lawyers, it's worth noting. And it's interesting that apparently they didn't do these things in response to what is supposedly juror intimidation. Like, they're allowed to object. In fact, a lot of the time you can't bring something up on appeal unless you have preserved it at trial by putting it on the record that you objected to it to get that preliminary decision. So it kind of sounds like maybe Endingo's lawyers did not think that this is what's going on.
Improper, he didn't get a proper trial given the...
Now we're just taking as for granted that there are threats.
At the jury. And the disruption of the court, which obstructs justice as well.
That's not what obstruction of justice is.
It's an interesting case. It seemed to be a straightforward, assault case. I'm not quite sure why.
Well, I mean, it's because
The jury found the way he
Is
did.
this the same?
well, maybe because Endingo just makes shit up.
There could be, the liability as to how the jury had, what the jury had to decide. Maybe they made the right decision, but.
Well, I mean, let's remember that this is a civil case. And the standard of proof in a civil case is called the preponderance of evidence. It's synonymous with the balance of probabilities in Commonwealth legal systems, and it means 51 to 49. If you think it is more likely than not that this thing happened, whatever it is that's being complained of, then you vote, you find for the plaintiff or the claimant, depending on what jurisdiction you're in. So they had the lowest possible standard of evidence, and they still did not feel that Endingo, a guy who just lies for a living, actually met that standard of evidence.
no way was there the appearance of a fair trial here.
I see. So this civil order could have been like, it was a mob, it was chaos, he got attacked in the middle of the chaos, nobody
What the hell is the civil order?
be intended for any of it, kind of
Maybe there was enough distance from the actual assaults that they could say I wasn't I wasn't.
Maybe there just wasn't any evidence of the bullshit that your boy actually claimed was going on.
Involved directly, and the jury could have fought that. But that's assuming that the justice was fairly administered in the courtroom and not compromised by the implicit threats of the attorney and the actual.
The implicit threats of the attorney that apparently Ending O's own lawyer did not see fit to object to, despite, I mean, if anyone would have heard them, and his job would have been to put that objection on the record and then demand a mistrial if he thought that was what was in fact going on. And even if he didn't think he was going to get a mistrial over that, if he thought that was going on, he would have to have brought that to the judge's attention in order to be able to deal with it on appeal. So, I mean, that's how wild this is.
Threats of the violent outbursts of Antifa members who were showing up in the court that became so severe that the court had to stop the public from gaining access to the courtroom. I think other than media were.
So when was that? How far through the trial did they start showing up and disrupting?
Oh, well, okay. Now you're asking for fucking details, Moonlord. Don't you realize that this is all made up?
I mean, this all occurred within the last week, 7 to 8 days, right?
That's when I started reading about it.
Yeah.
That's jury intimidation also?
No, it isn't. Like, yeah, protests are not jury jury intimidation.
How long
Potentially,
has his trial's been going?
But again, I mean, the person, if Ending O's lawyer believed any of this, then the way that you would deal with this is you would demand a mistrial. And if you don't get it, you proceed and then you appeal and say a mistrial should have been granted. Like, so, I mean, that is what a nothing burger they're cooking here. Because clearly, if there were anything like that, like, one thing I did not notice was any quotes in that bullshit post-millennial article. Any quotes of the fucking Ngol's counsel saying that this was jury intimidation or anything like that, because it would have been Ngol's lawyer's fucking job to object to that in court. That's why you have a lawyer.
Going on since like at least July 31st, I think. Katie Daviscourt from Post Millennial is covering it, and
Okay,
like,
so like they're not going to look at any well, of course they're not going to look at any legit sources.
she started.
What am I?
on
Yeah, that's
31st
just silly.
When the trial started, I think.
Dude, there's no way I can wrap my head around this. I mean, I'm getting this
Yeah, I know that's a common feeling for you to have, Moonlord.
from the Post Millennial, which, full disclosure, Andy No works for. Like,
Wow, I mean, what if there's a conflict of interest there? What if maybe there's a bit of bias? Maybe you should look to see if anyone else that isn't directly connected to a party to the case has actually confirmed all these claims that Ending O's fucking website is
I think he
making.
might.
I mean, incidentally, if you want to talk about jury intimidation, you want to talk about manipulating a trial, problematic trial publicity, Ending O would be a good example of that.
Be part owner
Yeah.
of the company or something, but I don't know, maybe he's not. That it's
I don't think he just writes for it. I believe he actually owns it. Who? Okay, owns the Post Millennial. Okay, let's see. No, he doesn't own it. Okay, it was founded in 2017 by Matthew Azrieli and Ali Tagva. Jeff Ballingal, Doug Ford was hired as the company's chief marketing officer. It's backed by private investors, the Human Events Media Group. Okay, so he does just write for it. Okay, so you did have that right. I thought I'd read someplace that it was like literally his website, but no, it's backed by a bunch of private capitalists who back all sorts of right-wing propaganda outfits.
It's like too bizarre. Like, the prosecuting attorney says to the jury, "I'll remember all of your faces."
No, it's the claim is that first of all, there's no prosecutor. It's a civil case. The term there's no prosecutor, Moonlord. There's a plaintiff's counsel. There's a defense counsel, and it wasn't the plaintiff's counsel who said that. And also, there's no evidence that he said that.
As if the jury's not going to crap themselves and be like, "What do I have to do for her not to come after me later?" Like,
Yeah, what? So the idea is that she, that the fucking defense counsel in this case, that the jurors were terrified that she personally was going to go around and rough each one of them up.
I do wrong. But it's also the facts of the case. Andy No being like, "Here's a video of me being mercilessly beaten in the street on more than one occasion. Here's a guy who admitted to attacking me in a gym. I need help." Then the defense attorney looks at the jurors and says, "I'll remember all of your faces."
Wow. I wonder if you're leaving any things out of that summary there.
And they're like,
Oh, the defense attorney, yes, not the prosecutor.
The defense attorney.
No, there is no prosecutor, Moonlord. I just can't help thinking. I mean, it's a thought that occurred to me a few weeks back, and ever since then I can't unthink it. Tim Pool's head looks like a glans that somebody painted a fake beard on and then put a little hat on top of.
The jurors are watching these people mercilessly beat innocent people, and that's not in question.
What innocent people? We're talking about Nazis, Tim.
We watch them do it on camera.
Yeah, we're talking about motherfuckers who came into town with guns, looking to rough up marginalized people if they could find them, looking to beat people up, who showed up wearing their fucking snacticle vests and with their AR-15s, who the cops allowed to set up a sniper nest in the middle of town. Like, what innocent fucking people, Tim?
And then the jurors are told, "We will never forget what you do this day."
Well, I mean, that is not an uncommon... okay, if that's what they said, that's actually not an uncommon thing to say in a summation. Because the point is to impress upon jurors that what they're doing right now is an important decision. That it is something that they should think long and hard about to make sure that they get it right. Like, I mean, so telling people, impressing upon them that what they're going to do is going to have real life consequences for real life people, that is a normal thing. So saying that we'll never forget what you do today or something like that, assuming that anyone actually said that, which we don't have any any corroboration for other than Pim Tool, which is nothing. That's less than that's negative corroboration right there. Makes it less likely just because he says it happens. But that would be a very normal thing to hear in a summation, both on either side, because both sides have an interest in reminding jurors that what they're doing is important.
Jurors are basically thinking to themselves, "I don't have anything to do with this," but they're cowards. That's about it. Cowardice.
I'm just like, maybe we need artificial intelligence juries. I can't take
Of course, that's where this motherfucker would take it.
it anymore. This juror tampering crap.
Nah,
Oh, now it's juror tampering. See, juror tampering is a completely different thing, and literally nobody has claimed that that's going on. I mean, it's just wild that you can do this. They're just speculating wildly, and nobody's saying, "Wait, did Andy Ngo's lawyer say this? Maybe we can get Andy Ngo's lawyer in here to explain what happened." You know, because if any of this shit was true, again, it would be his lawyer's job to get the objection on the record, and, you know, whether it's to preserve it for appeal or otherwise.
Artificial intelligence juries are not going to weigh justice. They're going to weigh...
be hacked.
They're going to weigh ease of...
Sin, I have to say, I'm actually fine with anti-fascists seeming scary to their target audience, because Tim Pool's podcast has a literal body count. Like, fucking mass shooters name him as a fucking inspiration. Gute Nacht gegen. I mean, so I'm kind of cool with those motherfuckers being afraid of the opposition. I think that that's a very good idea, because the thing about fascists is, by and large, they're fucking cowards. By and large, they're not interested in a fight. They want to give the beating. They do not want to, like, receive the beating. And so what tends to happen is if there's any chance of real opposition, the motherfuckers will run away. That tends to happen. I'm not saying it happens 100% of the time, but that is pretty common. Because the reason people become fascists is they want to hurt people who are defenseless.
Ease of access.
But is it cowardice? Because if you can't get a fair trial and you're living in Portland, it seems like it would almost be the prudent decision to make, to just be like, look, I think that they're probably guilty, but I don't want to have to.
That's cowardice.
Yeah, and it's also this is what's wild about the Tim Pool cast. Like, I just stopped the whole thing to fact check a claim about the ownership of the post-millennial, which really does not matter for the point that anyone's making here. Because whether he owns it or whether it is just something that he is prominently associated with, there's an obvious conflict of interest that arises in their coverage. But these motherfuckers are just talking about a claim, totally unsubstantiated as far as I can tell, that somebody said something about remembering people's faces. And they are not, questioning that at all. They're not saying, well, why don't we, they're not saying, well, let's look into this, because, you would want to know. Surely, if there's any person who would not be doing their job at that point, if this was just allowed to stand, it would be Ed Engel's expensive fucking mouthpiece. And wouldn't you want to know what the fuck that mouthpiece was thinking, not objecting to what you're saying is obvious juror intimidation? And then you'd want to ask them, and maybe then they would say, oh, actually, that wasn't that isn't what happened, and that's why I didn't object to it.
Well, it's cowardly, but also it's prudent, is it not? Like, would you?
No, it's not.
Well, was the jury?
I love to hear Tim Pool, a guy who incites violence from behind a microphone in a fucking compound in the middle of nowhere, his like little doomer meme Neverland ranch out in the middle of nowhere in buttfuck West Virginia, talking about cowardice. Like, he has set himself up so that he can inspire the violence and is miles away from its consequences. And he's going to talk about who's cowardly?
The term gains, you're sacrificing your future, your neighbor's future, your children's future.
Oh, is it? Well, we're getting into some 14-word shit right now.
For what? A few moments of... I'll put it this way. Those who would give up essential liberties for...
What essential liberty? The right to lead groups of fascist paramilitaries into a town you don't live in order to intimidate the people there, Tim?
Or freedom for a small amount of security, right. Deserve neither and will lose both.
Yeah.
What? That doesn't apply. That's nothing to do with it. There was no freedom versus security thing going on here.
Well, I think that's fair, but I'm saying if you're in a position where you're already not able to get a fair trial in a case like this, it's
Tim Tool Time Taylor Pool. Oh, that's a home improvement reference. I'm there for it. I wasn't expecting that. See, we get the really good random pop culture references here. Tim Pool, if it's not like gamer or fucking Marvel movies, you don't get a pop culture reference there. But over here, we're getting like random ass home improvement references from the 1990s. Thank you, Raven. You have greatly culturally enriched the stream just by doing that, and I say that from the bottom of my heart. I love that randomness.
It's kind of just time to leave.
I agree.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who say, like, I can't leave, I have kids, and I can understand and respect that. And I respect people saying, I'm going to stay here and try and push back.
Like, now they're just sort of making up a script of what is going through the heads of jurors they don't know anything about. Because the thing is, he started out saying that these jurors that are going to be terrified of Antifa, and it's like, that's not how juries work in this country. In this country, if you have strong feelings about one of the issues or parties involved in a trial going into it, counsel will kick you out. Yeah, or the judge will kick you sometimes if they think you can't be unbiased. So people whose feeling about anti-fascists was that they were scary people, if they, the chances of them sitting on this jury are next to nothing. And the people who think of anti-fascists as comrades who are defending the community and all that sort of thing as well, which is what they are, incidentally. But they also have zero fucking chance of serving on this jury unless they were just to hide that, because there are peremptory challenges and there are challenges for cause, and the judge can can kick people because they think somebody is ineligible or they're not, or they're biased. So, I mean, this entire scenario they're cooking up makes absolutely no sense in the context. I mean, I would love to see fucking Legal Eagle lawyer this and point out just how many different things they're saying that, I mean, procedurally it feels like the last episode of Seinfeld.
But if you're on this jury,
Yeah, you should still cast the proper vote. I agree.
yeah, don't.
A fun fact: my novel that I'm putting the final touches on, which is a satirical, queer, absurdist, anti-fascist road thriller, the tentative working title for it is "Biker, Bouncer, Soldier, Spy," because those are the 4 of the most common employment options of organized full-time neo-Nazis in Central Europe.
Be a coward.
Yeah.
You know,
And then if you're going to leave anyway, be like, nah, I'm going to find him liable. I'm going to get out. Look at this. Donald Trump's found liable for a sexual assault 30 years ago.
Yeah, because he did that shit. Yeah. Okay, so we are running down the top of the and actually you will find some tasters of it from on my Patreon, but it's under the older title, The 4-for-1 Murders, which is what I originally called it. And let me just Patreon. You can find that stuff over on here if you look up The 4-for-1 Murders. You'll have to scroll down a bit, but I serialized it. And you can get some little samples of it. Yeah, so we're wrapping up now, and let me also tell you, I don't know if you know about the hyperpolyglotting stream, which is my language-related stream that I do on Twitch, but that's a pretty cool space as well, I say, as somebody who is as unbiased about this as the post-millennial is on Endigo, as I am the streamer. But let me just drop some, let me see if I can find, the most recent... Okay. Oh, wait, no, this is the wrong place to be doing that. Here's just a little clip that I'm gonna just link you to. One of the highlights from today's stream. And this is a stream where we talk about just everything to do with languages and stuff. I'm also gonna drop you the link for the, the Discord for there, because there's a separate Discord for those purposes. Invite people, copy, and here's that. And love to see you there, love to see you on that stream as well. Thank you to everyone who joined. I do think that a record was broken today in terms of the number of people who simultaneously watched. Really appreciate it, really enjoyed the chat. You know, I just love a lively chat, and it's been really, I mean, it's been really cool just how many people have decided that this is something they want to spend their Friday and Saturday nights with. I quite enjoy it. It's always lovely to hear all of you. So I will be back next week, and until then, have a good week.